And welcome to Two Gray Goatees and a Whistle. I am joined today by a very special guest. You might have seen him on TikTok, especially if you're somebody who's in the business of coaching and you're looking for ideas. And this person is Coach V. Through his videos, he shares practical advice to youth and high school coaches on culture, leadership, practice organization, creating positive experience for athletes. He's also the founder of AI Coaching Solutions, where he's helping coaches save time through practice planning, swing analysis, and other tools and combined technology and coaching. We'll get into that as well. Coach, thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me. Appreciate it.
So I want to get into a little bit of a background, kind of build who you are as a person, where you came from, before we get into the AI stuff, which I think is really cool, and I want to get into that. But let's kind of talk about
Yeah.
how you sports as a youth. Kind of what sports did you do? How did that eventually influence you into becoming a coach?
Well, it's really about it was really about my dad. My dad was my coach and he was pretty brutal on me. My friends loved him, but let's just say the rides homes weren't always great and those types of things. But and this isn't a bad dad story. It's just more of he pushed me to be the best player I could be. And, sometimes as a kid, you don't realize that until you get older. And I resented him a bit for some of I don't think his approach was great, but his intention was right. And so my dad was a big part of me. He coached my baseball. I coached basketball. He was also one of the things that he really showed me as a kid was he was big in community. He was also the organizer of our recreation department of our town for a while. So he always ran like the little league tournaments and those types of things. So, and of course, our family would have to, participate, or my team would be in it, and he'd coach our team. But so it was my dad, and then I just, I love playing basketball. So that was kind of my sport, but I played baseball too. And then as I got older, you know, I always think that like maybe like the not best athlete, or the not best player on the team could possibly be the best coach. And I was, I think I'm a better coach than I was a player. I was a good player. I was solid. I did the little things. I boxed out. I got rebounds. I got those types of things when I played. I did like the small things. I wasn't, scoring all the points or those types of things. And so I was more of like the guy that just went in and did the detailed stuff. And I think that also taught me a lot about coaching and being detailed and appreciating those types of players as well, not just the people that score 25 points a game. Like the person who gets 8 or 9 rebounds is pretty clutch too. So my coaching career, I ended up, my kids came home one day. I was in New Hampshire. Was living in Manchester, New Hampshire, and there was a elementary school and they didn't have a coach. They were going to not have a boys team. So I started coaching my son's 4th and 5th grade boys travel basketball team. I did that for 10 years. Probably some of the best coaching fun I ever had. They were, at that age, they're just trying to learn and you're just trying to eat up everything you did. It was probably my first best step getting into coaching. And then I got hired at the high school that I'm at and I started coaching girls freshman basketball and then moved up to JV and now I'm up to varsity. I've coached boys varsity volleyball. I'm coaching JV girls volleyball. I've coached my son's little league, minor league teams. So I've had a variety of sports that I've coached and different levels. And so the one more coach that has put a lot of influence is actually one that I'm with right now. He has been coaching in New Hampshire for about 40 years. He's in the New Hampshire Hall of Fame. He's the boys varsity basketball coach. The gym is named after him at our high school. He's also the headmaster of our high school. He's my boss. So I guess I have to say nice things about him, but I'm not a dumb person. I watched and I sat a lot of his practices and watched what he did. And I learned a ton of coaching from watching him. I've also been assistant coaches under other head coaches as well, which I've learned a lot from being an assistant coach to varsity coaches. And they help me not so much be the coach that I am so much, but I take, it's good at taking the good and some of the bad and taking what you like from certain coaches and then making it your own kind of deal. And that's kind of what coaching is, really. It's just kind of stealing stuff from other people and then sprinkling yourself on it and then calling it kind of. But
Yeah.
so that's kind of what my coaching background is.
Yeah, so a lot there, and I appreciate that. You know, you brought up coaches that influenced you and stuff like that, and the same path for me. I mean, I when I first started coaching, it was at a young age. I was coaching like fourth, fifth, sixth graders in football, and then then I went to middle school, and then I coached some in high school, and then I've been assistant coaches and I've been head coaching in different sports, basketball, football, whatever, and softball. So just and then always learning from anybody I was around, because you can never stop learning. And you brought that up and the importance of that, making sure you are coming in being a sponge and learning from whoever that coach is, because there's always stuff there that can help you make yourself better. And I appreciate you sharing that information.
I right now, one of the reasons that I went and coached JV girls volleyball was because as a varsity coach, I mean, I don't know if you're still coaching or you're coaching. If you coached during COVID, it was a very tough time to coach kids during that time. And after COVID was over, I don't know. There was a point where I felt like I don't know if I'm connecting with the girls anymore. I don't know if my communication is right. I just didn't feel so. I coached JV volleyball, and the woman that's the varsity is just a tremendous coach. And I have learned so much of her techniques with girls and how to communicate with them. And it's a lot more meetings. It's a lot more like having some talks and giving like all kinds of different strategies she has. I mean, I am me still, but I've taken a bunch of that and it's really helped my team a lot. It's helped me make my teams better for sure.
Yeah, and you bring up coaching girls, and so you've coached boys and girls, and the dynamics. There is a difference in how you approach coaching. I think sometimes with girls and boys, there's some things that are obviously the basics, techniques. It's not going to matter what the sport is, whether it's boys or girls basketball or baseball, softball, whatever it is. There's certain things. The technical side of it is fine, but sometimes how you approach uh, girls versus boys sometimes can be a little bit different. And so, what are some things that you've noticed when when
100%.
you're coaching girls versus boys that maybe that you learned, especially from some of your watching some of these other head coaches, how they approach coaching girls versus boys?
Well, I'm also married, so
Yeah, me too.
coaching coaching girl, yes, I've seen your stuff. Communication is key with women and girls and I found with girls is you don't want to you have to kind of tiptoe around some things a little bit, but you want to constantly communicate with girls. I mean, boys, I mean, you're going to you want to communicate with them, but it's not at the same level with girls. Like they really need want to know. They want to know. They want the details. They don't want like if you're leaving girls to figure it out on their own, you're going to be in trouble. Like you need to have a direction. You need to have like what they need to do. And I mean, with girls, you just got to be prepared because in their mind, they're always questioning everything. They've got a question on and they want to know like when they're on the court, like what their responsibility is because if they're not, then they're going to be upset because they don't want to upset you. The one thing is they care. Like boys, if a kid's missing like 7 shots, but he makes 1 3, he thinks he's on fire. The problem with girls is they miss 1 3, they may never shoot again because they feel like they've disappointed everybody. You know what I mean? So there's constant like reassuring, like you can do this, it's okay. Making mistakes is part of the game. There's a lot of that communication reassurance that, failing is not, you're not letting down anybody. I try to communicate more like failing and not continuing to work, or, you know, by you just stopping what you're doing, you're letting the team down by you stopping just because you felt like you missed a shot, or, they're just very in their heads. There's just so much that's going on. Like, you know, my, I feel like I woke up today and my hair doesn't look good, and someone's out in the bleachers, and they're probably looking at my hair and they think I'm ugly. You know what I mean? There's just so many crazy things that's going on. Like, you just have to reassure them like that everything's okay and they're going to be fine. And they just got, and I would just say the biggest thing about girls is they care and they want to do well. They just want to do well. And if there's one story I will tell you, when I first coached the girls, it was a freshman team. First time, first time coaching high school basketball. We go, my first game, we go off to this place in Lebanon, and they're always a tough team. And everybody in the school was like, oh God, you're going to Lebanon. We end up going there. We go into overtime, and I say to the girls, all right, now don't foul, because we're in foul trouble. Like, there's 5 seconds left. Don't foul. Just, play defense. Well, they didn't. The girl went end to end, put the basket in on a layup. We didn't touch her, and the game was over, and so the next day we had another game. I said to the girls, hey, that's my fault. I should have been a little bit more direct on that. But if you guys play the same way you did today, you'll have victory. You should win. So we went and we played in the morning, and the game was over. We won. And I go over to my board that I draw on, and one of the girls had written on the board, like, you did a great job today, coach. And I said, oh, you know what I mean? And that's, probably boys aren't doing that. Girls are. Girls cared that I took responsibility for that game the day before, and they wanted to make sure that I knew that I did a good job the next day. You know what I mean? And that's a little bit what coaching girls can be like. It's very rewarding to coach girls. It can be a little bit drama filled at times, but it can be very rewarding as well.
Yeah, and I've coached girls basketball, JV level and stuff like that, and I've been help assist at softball, especially when my daughter was playing. But one thing that when I was talking to another coach one time about with softball girls, and this will go with any sport, the girls want to know the why. Like you mentioned, they want to know why they're doing what they're doing, and as
Absolutely.
long as you can explain that to them and say, even during drills, we are doing this drill because we want to make sure that you're not letting a ball go past you in the outfield, or we want you to catch it with two hands or whatever the situation is.
That's
We're always
100%.
we're always,
Yes.
as long as you are doing the explaining the why. I think you do a lot better job as a coach to reach players, girls in particular. I've noticed.
100%. Yes. I mean, the boys need communication too, but
But yeah,
you're absolutely right.
yeah,
You're absolutely right. Like,
boys are fun,
they
and
want to know. Boys
they're
of our fun.
they want to know why. But if you told them, hey, I just need you to, okay, coach, and then they just do it. A lot
Yeah.
of times it's like no
Yeah.
question, and so sometimes on the other side of that, girls are more, they want to know what's going on, and that's just part of the game, and
Yeah.
it's a wonderful thing to be a part of. So what? Let's move
100%.
on to your culture and leadership segment here. What is one thing that stands out to you, and when you're connecting, and how much you emphasize your culture? And when people throw that word around a lot, what does team culture actually mean to you? What's when you're talking about team culture? What does it mean to you, and how do you develop that or culture? A culture. Excuse me.
If you wanted me to give you a roadmap on, if you were starting a program and how do you build your culture, is first of all, you need to have the right leaders in place to that understand your culture and understand. So picking just people because they're a senior, or picking people because you're doing voting for you're doing voting to allow them to be a popular choice, is probably a mistake on creating a culture for your team. Your culture starts from the players themselves. Like, I can create the culture on the court, but what happens in the locker room and what happens outside of the court is on the team. And you've got to get the right leaders in place to make sure that team building things are happening. Like once in a blue moon, like they should go out with one another, and that should be the whole team. Should be a lot of times girls after our home games will go out to dinner somewhere, or during the week they'll have a spaghetti dinner at somebody's house. And when I sit my captains down before the season starts, I give them, if I say, if you're going to be a captain, then you have to have your responsibility is team. You have to do a couple team building things. I mean, you don't have to do it all the time, but you have to do some, and you have to police the locker room for drama. And what I tell them is, I mean, this may sound a little, I tell them is if you are part of the drama that's happening, then you won't lose any playing time or your position or anything, but I will announce to the team that you're no longer a captain to them because you're not doing the responsibilities of what a team is. And I've been extremely fortunate that my first varsity team went undefeated. We won a state title. The girls on that team were very driven and very tough. And so your leadership that you pick teaches the leadership for the next group. So the younger girls on your team learn how your team goes by the older girls. So it's important to have that culture established with the girls, and it's very important. So to me, leadership is built within your team by you setting the standards and those things as far as of what you expect for them. So to me, it's your captains, it's your older kids. If we're talking younger kids, I would say, I mean, it's all more about you. You're the culture. You're setting the standards, those types of things. But as you get older, the high school kids, that's what you're doing.
Yeah, and I've noticed.
That's how I would say you establish.
Yeah, and one thing that we did when I was helping with softball, and our head coach, he really built a culture in those first 2 years, and by the second year, we went to state, lost in the championship game, and in a really good game, and that was the year before COVID. COVID came around, and we had everybody back, and we had a lot of young talent coming through too, and it was gonna be a nice mold, especially with the older kids, these younger kids getting to learn from the older kids and to be able to keep that culture going. COVID hit. We got about 3 or 4 games into the season, and we were clicking, and it was like, okay, yeah, we are going back to state. We are going back. We're going to be in the championship again. And because we had everything, we didn't lose anything. And those girls had experience playing at a high
Huge.
level. And so, but when COVID hit, it just, everything stops. And we know how bad that was for everybody. And, that
It's
that
terrible.
was gone.
Yeah, it's terrible.
And then so the following year, it was those one girls that were still up there. There was still a few of them that were a part of that, but I think that kinda got lost a little bit, that culture, and then so you kinda have to rebuild that again, and so they've done pretty
Yeah.
good about being competitive, the softball team, but you've kind of noticed, and I'm not part of it anymore, but I've noticed that it's taken them a little longer to get where they to go there again because that leadership kinda got pulled from them, and those examples
Yeah.
from those girls, and it's kind of a crazy thing that happens, but you're spot on about the leadership that you're picking, because a lot of times I've seen it where, okay, team, vote who you want your captain. Sometimes they want to pick the best the best athlete, and sometimes that's not necessarily the best idea because that might be the best athlete, but what's his character like or what's her character like? What are they like in the classroom? All those things are important,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
sometimes as a coach, you got to look at that too. It's like, what's the one that's doing all the little things right, might be your second best player or your third best player, but who's the ones that are setting the example? And those are the ones that sometimes you got to make sure that they're part of that leadership and develop them into that leadership role. I liked how you did bring up how
Yeah.
the whole culture thing and about setting team dinners and stuff like that. We have that here. And sometimes the parents take that, where the school I'm at right now, the parents are amazing. we have some moms, especially a couple moms that are just amazing about having team dinners for all the sports. It didn't matter if it was football, basketball, soccer, whatever it was. They had, and this is middle school, high school. These parents would step up, and these moms in particular would step up. They'd have meals. They would bring meals on travel games. So we travel hour, 2 hours
Yeah.
away to a game, instead of having to stop at a McDonald's or something on the way back or get concession food. Parents would be pulling up with these heated bags with like burritos in them, all wrapped up and ready to go and stuff like that. It
Yeah.
was it was amazing,
Yeah.
and it's just
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's the type of
Yeah.
culture you want. And we had movie nights with we'd work at a school. We would bring them into a classroom, tell them bring a blanket, whatever. You guys can chill out, lay out wherever you want, and throw a movie on for them and have popcorn and doing stuff like that helped to build that culture up. And the
Yeah.
things that you got going on
Yeah.
there just reestablishes that the importance of that. It's not just what you're doing on the court or in the field, but it's all the things you're doing behind the scenes. And I think that's important for coaches to understand.
I think if you one of the things I'll tell you is when I first started the varsity program, we have an alumni game which girls come back to. There was maybe 5 girls at the alumni game. The trainer and another woman assistant coach would have to play in that game. Now, I have over 15 to 20 girls that come every alumni game. And the other thing that I would tell you that I know my culture is good is I had a season where I went 4 and 14 at the banquet. I s had senior girls that were basically going there wasn't any drama on that team. There wasn't any and if anything, I had seniors at the end going to that banquet and just appreciating their team, their teammates, and how much they loved playing basketball with their team. And when you have those kind of talks as people get up and say those types of things, that's when you know your culture works. And that's I've been very fortunate to have I work at a wonderful school and I work with we have wonderful parents and I'm very blessed to be supported the way I am and lucky and not everybody gets that where they go. And it sounds like that's a very nice community that you have going there for sure when you got parents doing that kind of stuff. As a coach, that's a huge help. That makes life great.
Yeah. And the so you did touch on this. And this one thing I want to bring up is you brought up not every season is going to be a winner. We know that, you sometimes you don't have control about what comes through. You do what you can to develop your talent and stuff like that. But sometimes you're gonna have a bad season. Happens. How do you maintain your standards and keep everything positive during difficult seasons where you're gonna go 4 and 14 or 2 and 11 or whatever,
Yeah.
because you're not always
Yeah.
gonna be winning championships every year. That's just a part of life. It's not gonna happen.
You're not in my mind, you're not treating that team any different than you treat the team that's going 15 and we came to practice every day. We worked the same way we did the year before. So those a lot, we get a bunch of those girls have been in the program. They understand what practice is like. They understand what it is. One thing, like I think some of the videos that I've been posting is, and part of the reason we went 4 and 14, we had a bunch of injuries to our better players and some other girls had to step up younger than they were supposed to be. At a sophomore who, probably shouldn't have been the point guard, but they were, you know what I mean? And those types of things. And they weren't learning the fire. I mean, to tell you 2 years later when she has a huge game for us in a playoff game that wins it in an upset for us, but by her going through that fire early in that year really set her up for her senior year. You know what I mean? And so, those are the kind of things you just have to not coach them any differently. You understand that you're trying to tell them that it's not about the result, it's about the process. And are we going to be better than we are? You know, and I will tell you that last game of the season, we're playing a team, the fifth best team in the league. We're probably the 17th or 18th team. We fight them to the end. We lost by 12 or so, but that coach came up to my girls at the end of that game and said, "You should be the team that's getting in to the playoffs. We played this other team that's going to be the final team in." And, you know, the girls fought to the end. They fought to the end of every game. They knew exactly who they were. And we just I just made sure that they knew that, A, I appreciated the work that they put in. I appreciated who they were, and to understand that no matter how difficult it is to lose, it's more about playing with your teammates, playing hard, and just getting the most out of you can out of your experience as you can. And I think as a coach, one of the things I've realized that I'm not winning a state title every year. What's probably the most important thing is making the experience great for my kids. And that's really what I try to do is make a great experience so they feel like they've gotten something out of basketball.
And that's great. And I've always looked at it because I've had seasons where in sports and not boys or girls, and it went great and had unbelievable seasons. And I've been on part of teams. It's just like it's a long season, especially basketball can be long, especially if you're not winning. And
It's long. It's a long
it makes it
season.
very
Yeah.
long. And
Yeah.
and
It's long.
I just
It is
it
long.
is just keeping that interest and stuff like that, and building that, keeping those standards regardless of what's going on and treating them the same. Like I'm not going to care if we're a 15-0 team or a 4-14 team. It's not going to matter. We are going to approach it this way. And, you know, uh, that's, to me, that's very important to keep that consistency, to keep your culture and to keep your standards where they should be. When it comes a little bit back to our leadership, and especially when we're trying to pick those leaders, when you're trying to pick your leaders, sometimes the quiet ones could be the best leaders. So if you got a kid that's a little more reserved on your team, but you're like, they do everything right, how do you develop them into those leaders? Is there, how do you approach those type of people that, you know, that's why I want to be my leader? Because obviously you can't force it on the kid. If they're just not comfortable doing it, it's not going to work. But how can you develop those quiet kids that might be the ones that need to be your captain?
Well, some of the things that I've learned over my life working many jobs, and one of them was I was a manager for a restaurant chain for a while, and I had to hire and fire people, and so I had to hire management too, and some teenagers would be management. And what I understood was, you're exactly right in the fact like you can't make somebody something that they aren't. And but when that leadership comes, what I would say to you is you need to find this. Like I can think of a couple girls on my team right now that are the more of their strength is more of the vocal person, or their strength is more of that person. And then what you need to do is you need to go and encourage that girl to be a leader, but you also what you do is you tie them with the girl that is a little bit more of that outgoing leader that you have. And then you pair them up and then you give them the responsibility. So here's what I do a lot of times. When I communicate to my team, I don't have like I'm not using Team Snap or I'm not using any of those things. I use text, but the only people I text are the captains. I don't text everybody on the team. The captains communicate what my message is to the team. And so therefore, she now then I probably what I would do is I would text her and say, "Listen, you please tell the team, this, this, and this." And then try to maybe that's almost forcing her a little bit to be vocal with the team or to be communicative to the team. So therefore, when they make their group together, because they all have a big social media group that they create and talk whether you did that or not, they make a group and talk about what communicate with one another. And so to me is I would probably try to give her communication responsibilities to the team to try to get her more communicative, because probably what you're talking about, if she's quiet, but the girls already respect her because she's of her play on the floor, my guess, and who she is as a person. But so I don't have like some real strategy on how to bring out the beastly leader of a kid that you wished, because I can't. And I'm sure you've coached and you understand, like there's just some kids that have this fire and they have this peace, and there's others that don't and don't even want it. And you have to coach all those kids the best way you can. But if if here's a culture building tool that I've used, and it's real simple. I make a you break up your team into some equal groups, 3 or 4, make an expedition. I called it, like, the last one I did was a hiking expedition. I had 4 different roles. One was the leader, one was the navigator, one was the communicator. I mean the navigator, one was like the person that made sure everybody was okay, and the other person was making sure no one got left behind. So then what the group has to do is they have to look at their teammates, their group that they're in, designate who's the leader and those things, and then they have to look at the other groups and say who's the leader in those roles in the other groups. And then we come together and then we say, you know, and what you find is, and one volleyball team I did it, the girl that you talked about, the quiet, but she's our best hitter. She would just crush the ball all the time. She had huge respect from her teammates just by what she did on the floor. And both other teams, like in her own team, she wasn't the leader, but both other teams made her the leader of that team. And she was like, I'm the leader. And I'm like, yeah, because what you do on the floor, you know what I mean? So that's what I'm saying is, like, that's what you're kind of up against sometimes. They shouldn't even realize she was a leader.
So sometimes you just got to make them realize it themselves, and sometimes they don't. And I think that's a great idea, a way you can, get kids to kind of realize their potential or how other kids see them. And I like that. All right. I want to switch it up
Yep.
a little bit.
Yep.
Let's talk about your social
Yep.
media a little
Yep.
bit. Okay. Let's talk about how you got into
Okay.
TikTok.
Yeah.
Let's talk about what got that going
Yeah.
a little bit. So you've built a following in your TikTok. You're sharing coaching ideas and experiences. You give your own take on it, and then you're sharing some of the best coaches ever to sit in this world. I mean, between Wooden, just for example,
Yeah.
or Saban. Some of these guys, some of these people who are just amazing.
Lou
Lou
Holtz. Yeah.
Holtz,
Yeah.
all these guys, and it's just like
Yeah.
these guys are just like legends. When you came up with this, did you expect so many coaches to connect with your message?
Well, you know, TikTok wasn't really ever going to be like I'm like 60 years old. Like, what am I on TikTok? You know what I mean? And what I wanted started to do is, like, we'll talk about AI coaching solutions and those types of things. But I used to be, like I said, I've done a lot of jobs in my life, and one of them was selling computer products at computer shows for many, many weekends back in the 90s. And the one thing that I learned to understand is, if if people want if I want people to trust what I'm doing with a business or anything I'm doing in life, they're going to need to learn to understand and trust who I am and what I'm about, and what I stand for and those types of things. So it came to understand that in order for me to move along, I need to show people that I'm coming to make things that are for coaches, and that I feel like my 25, 30 years of coaching, I have knowledge that I can help people with, and I can bring that to them. So right now, what I'm doing is building a catalog of what I believe is good coaching and what I feel are the correct messages that should be sent to teams. And so the thing about it started in my truck, because, as you can see, I could sit and talk for a long period of time. And normally during a season, I can sit in a truck and just rattle off like crap all the whole time. So I'm like, I might as well just videotape this and just put it on TikTok. So it started with that. And then I started to do they have like that little text to image TikTok messages, like every day, like reminder or a tip or those types of things. And, I just thought, well, like right now, like a lot of them you'll see be themed are like playoff time and end of season, because in the high school, that's wrapping up right now. Softball, baseball, lacrosse, those sports are wrapping up. So a lot of coaches are in the midst of playoffs, or their seasons have just ended, or those types of things. So I'm also conscious of like what time of year it is and what it is. Like, some coaches are going through. So then, like, you know, a lot of these coaches are like, like Mike like, if I was to tell you to read a book, like I read a Mike Krzyzewski book, and it was like one of the best books I ever read, because one of the best things he ever said that resonated with me is it's not about the X's and O's, it's about the connections with your players, and that's really what it's about. And I can't tell you how true that is. I've had some teams that, I mean, they couldn't run a play to save their life, but they go out and fight hard and win games just because they wanted to either fight for me or fight for themselves or whatever. And I've just always thought to myself, like, that, having those connections and making people believe in you, and because you believe in them, is just a very powerful piece as a coach that you can have. And if you can build that, you're going to have a lot of success, because when people try to play not for them, just for themselves, but also play for you, that's big. So as far as like I'm very creative in far as, in my mind, what I want coaches to see, and some things that I feel is really good. So like the Lou Holtz and the Mike Krzyzewski, I mean, those quotes are great quotes, and I'm able to digitally make some of them, and those types of things. But those, I mean, those are videos that you can go to YouTube and see, and those types of things. I just found them and took little clips and made them so that maybe some of the coaches that don't know these coaches that well, or are youth coaches, or aren't as not quite seasoned as I am, can see how great, understand, like, it's not a lot of things to great coaching. Like, for instance, Lou Holtz one is only three things. He talks about three things. Do the right thing, give
Yep.
your best every time, and then show people you care. Those three things. You know how many views that's gotten? Like 20,000 views. That
Yep.
one video, and that's all he pretty much says in it. Because you know what? That is what really is the truth about coaching. And it's very easy to resonate. The latest Nick Saban one I made about, average players want you to leave them alone. Good players want you to coach them. Great players want you to tell them the truth. And
Yep.
that's resonating with coaches. That's resonating with players. You know what I mean? So again, finding these quotes, and I guess the reason I guess I click them off is because they resonate with me, and this is what I want to bring to my channel. This is what you're going to see when you get here.
Yeah. And just to throw a couple more out there for you to look at in the future, it's called proactive coaching. I don't know if you've heard of them or
Please.
seen. Yeah. Proactive coaching. Look up their
No.
stuff. Brown, he is a legend on this proactive coaching, and he had some videos. He's been around for a long time. Another guy, and I've got to talk to him, his name's Rob Miller. He's kind of taken over it, and they go around and they give talks and stuff. That's somebody I would recommend. Look at some of their stuff. They got some amazing stuff.
Can you
I'll
so
send you the
anything you
link.
see, could you email me anything? Yeah,
Yeah,
send
I
me
can.
send me anything that you think would
Yeah,
be
yeah,
great.
yeah. Because these guys brought with Brown. He man, I actually got to listen to him at a coaching clinic, and man, he when it came down to gosh, some of the stuff I'm just trying to think of, like he's talking about parents, and one of the things that he talked about, and he had a video on this about parents and coaching, and one of the things he said, in all the time he's coached, he coached up in Northwest, up in the Washington area. He said that the most successful players that went on to found success were the ones that the parents let them have ownership in that. As far as parents goes, parenting, you control a lot of what they can do. You want to, because if they have to take the car out, or if they can go to the movies or stay at a friend's house. But sports is one thing that kids should have their own ownership in. And if parents can learn to understand that and let them have ownership. So if a parent, or if a kid has an issue with a coach, if the parent can say, okay, looks like you got a problem, you try to take care of it. Obviously, if it becomes too
Yes.
much, then I'll step in. But it's really, stuff like that. And there's so much more of the proactive coaching in there, but I'll make sure you get that great stuff. I
Please
think,
do.
yeah, that you'll get a lot of good information. I'm also a big Ted Lasso fan. So if you ever get a couple Ted
Ted
Lasso
Lasso.
quotes, you put some stuff on Ted
Okay, some
Lasso.
funny I love Ted
Ted
Lasso.
Lasso,
Yeah,
man, dude, there is some great stuff in
yeah,
there.
yeah,
It's for coaching and just in life
yeah.
in general.
It's true.
What,
Ted Lasso's classic.
yeah, other,
Like this is, what do you think about a coach? Like a lot of times, like a couple of my communication ones, clearly they're the athlete, the parent, and the athlete and the coach. The coach is not communicating to the athlete like his role or what he's doing, and so what's happening is the coach is leaving it up to the player and the parent to try to figure out what his role is, and that can be a road. So a lot of times I do encourage exactly what you say, like, which is a great point. Like the child needs to go up to the coach and say, "Coach, you know what I mean? What am I doing? Like, what am I? Can you please tell me what my role is?" And I'm sure you've experienced this as well. There are just some coaches that are not good at communicating. Like in their head, I feel like they know what the kid's role is, but they don't either want to communicate it or they feel like they don't want to hurt the kid's feelings or those types of things. And I think some of my videos that you see on TikTok are also very like honesty is not a negative. It can feel negative, but an honesty is not negative. And the problem as a coach, sometimes honesty doesn't necessarily come across as a huge positive thing that happens, but you're going to serve yourself much better as a coach being very honest with your players than you are trying to hide or not say something. So, I mean, for the most part, I think the questions I get are, you know, if you were in this situation, coach, how would you address this? Because this other coach is not doing this. So I get a bunch of those. For the most part, I would say that's mostly what I'm getting, situations.
okay. Let's talk about a little bit about how social media has kind of changed coaching. What are some of the positives you're seeing with how social media is helping coaches, and what are some of the dangers that you're seeing as maybe in there as well?
I think the positive thing is so you brought up, Coach Brown and proactive, right? I've had a colleague that I put on my channel who's very into the constraint-led practices, which means it's not about skill building, it's about building skills through gameplay and making constraints. And so I think what's good that's coming out is that you're seeing like really fresh ideas on how different people go about things. Because as you pointed out earlier, the important thing as a coach is that you continue to learn and not shut yourself down that this is only one way to coach something. And let's face it, we're older. The coaches that we had when we were kids were different with us than we are with the kids we have today because the kids are not parented the same way as they were back in the day, let's say. So therefore, you have to adjust your coaching style to that kind of parented kid. Yelling at, screaming at a kid is probably not going to be very successful with this level of child. When a coach screamed and yelled at me, my dad's coach, he screamed and yelled at him. So he didn't really care that the coach really screamed and yelled at me. So that's not what it is today. So you have to adjust your coaching style to what is how the kids are being parented. But that doesn't mean you don't hold standards. It doesn't mean you don't tell them the truth. It just means that your approach has to be correct. And so to me, as far as the bad the bad pieces of and I honestly haven't seen tons of bad, but I think that if there's anyone coming out, and I've probably seen a couple, that their system is the only system. This is the only way you can do it. This is the only, and the important thing as a coach to know is you need to create your own system that you work best in. And so, and trying to find that trying to find that groove that you fit best in, that you can communicate with your kids. And when your kids come out of a practice, that they're saying, they felt like they got something out of that practice. And that's really what your job is to do, is try to make them feel like there's a process, there's a goal, and that process and goal is the theme of how your team is going to be, and everything that you build all fills into that process and goal. And that way the kids never feel the strain away, like there's no doubt on how what like so when we talk about basketball with my girls, we talk about playing co-brown basketball. And co-brown basketball means, running the floor, playing defense, communicating, rebounding. We do those four things during a game, we're going to win. You know what I mean? And that's the kind of program, those are the kinds of mindset. Do we always win? No. But when we talk about playing co-brown basketball, we talk about that in a good way when things are going well during a game, but we also talk about it when things aren't going well in the game. And when you say co-brown basketball, everybody on the team understands what we're not doing because they know what co-brown basketball is. And so those are the kinds of things that as a coach, you're trying to just develop your system. So people coming on saying, well, if you're not doing this, well, you're not going to be this, or you're not. So the important thing as a coach, like, I think you need to learn from other coaches and then build your system the way you feel comfortable building it.
Okay, like, it's good stuff. That leads us into practices. So building a better practice. One
Practice.
areas coaches always seem to be looking is helping coaching or in is practice planning. I think young coaches sometimes they, especially if it's somebody who's been thrown into the meat grinder, like you got voluntold you're going to coach this
Yeah.
team, and you're like, oh, okay,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
you're stuck with a bunch of
Yeah.
11-year-olds coaching the
Yeah.
little league baseball team or
Yeah.
whatever it is. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
especially sometimes teachers get this too. It's like, oh, sometimes in the interview question, do you know how to coach? And you're like, for me, it was like, yeah, of course, yeah. But you probably get some teachers that are like, yeah, I don't know, I've never done it before. And the next thing you know, oh, by
Yeah.
the way, yes,
Yeah.
you're going to be
Yeah.
our social studies teacher, but you're also going to be coaching the eighth grade girls softball team. Good luck with that. Have fun. And you're like,
Yeah.
what?
Yeah.
So what what is one area coaches when they're looking at practice planning? What separates great practices from averages ones?
Yeah. So first, when I took the first Jewett Street job, I had 15 kids. I'd be working with 10 and 5 were fooling around on the stage
Right.
up on the top because it was just me. So I think the main thing is for anyone that's just walking in the door, and of course it depends on the level, but really you can't be good at everything. Like if you're trying to go through every inch of what basketball is at every practice. So we're going over dribbling, then we're going over passing, then we're going to go over the footwork, and then we're going to go over, you know what I mean? You're going to really, probably the kids are not going to have a great experience just trying to go through every drill and every section of it. I think what you would try to do is I think the important thing is you find those important things that are that that your team needs, and then you really try to focus on those things. And then what you want to do is what I have figured out over time is you want to make everything you can as competitive as you can. So in other words, when we have a finishing drill for a warm up, there's usually a time and a goal that they're trying to reach as a team to do this finishing drill. Even a passing drill, I have a time, and when the last 30 seconds left of that passing drill, they have there's an amount of something that has to happen. And what you start to get is them when you make your goals correctly, then you start hearing them cheer for one another during those drills. You start to feel like, and then when you make a goal that's hard, but it's not unachievable, then once they start to achieve those drills. Now, as a team, they start to feel like now we're doing something together. 2 weeks ago, we only were at 12. This week, we got to 15, and that was the goal. And then, of course, you push up your goal. Well, now you got to get to 16, or you know what I mean? And just trying to make practices competitive, make it so that you are doing things and things, there's not a ton of talk. Like, you're not sitting there and lecturing to kids for 5 minutes before every drill. It should be, okay, now we're going to do this drill. And once the kids start to know the drills, of course, early on what they practice, but once they know what the drill is, it should be drill, bam, 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 bam. And one of the things that I was on an interview with last week, and one of the things I said was, if you can get your kids for an hour and a half to 2 hour practice, and when you say, okay, this is it, this is the last thing we're doing for practice, and they go, what? Like, it's over already? What does that say? That says they're not even knowing what time it is. They're just practicing. And they say, wow, that went by so fast. You know what I mean? And so if you can get that, if you can find that groove as a coach, you are definitely on the right track of having really good practices.
All right. This leads into our next thing. Let's talk a little bit about AI coaching solutions. So, looking at that, what you have going on, and looks like this, it sounds like you got some more things you're getting ready to add to it. But one of the things was brought up was practice planning. You also talk about swing
Yeah.
analysis, all this other type of stuff. Let's talk a
Yeah.
little bit
Yeah.
about what AI coaching solutions is, what inspired you to create this platform, and what problems are you trying to solve for coaches here?
So I'm in education. I'm an IT director at a high school. Of course, there's a big thing on AI is kids cheating or kids, all the bad things about AI. So I had to really kind of learn AI. I took some online courses at Vanderbilt about prompting and education in AI and those types of things. After going through those courses, I realized, like, wow, this is a really powerful tool. Really, really powerful. And I've had some ideas in my head. I am good at some things in like programming and stuff, but I'm not super great. But AI is now taken some of my ideas and helped me bring them to life. So if we talk about the practice planner, which is going to be my, like, let's say, flagship product for my coaching, what I wanted to do, though, first of all, there'll be a free version for coaches of everything that they can just use. And the free version of the practice planner is every coach that's experienced has their drills and what the name of those drills are and how long those drills are and what they're for. Are they warm up? Are they defense? Are they footwork, conditioning, blah, blah, blah. So what I want to make for a coach is for them to create their own database of the name of their drill, what it does, what it is, a warm up, 10 minutes. And then I want the practice planner so they can, like, designate, okay, well, I'm going to work 15 minutes on my offense. I'm going to work 15 minutes on defense, doing 5 minutes on free throws. And then I'm just going to hit, and then I want a defense based practice today. They'll click enter and it will fill out the practice planner for them with their drills for that amount of time filled in between the designated spots that they're going to coach, let's say offense and defense. So that could probably save a coach 15, 20 minutes of time. And then it would have a drop. They could select whatever other drills they have in any slot they wanted after it generated it. But it'd be something that you could have on your phone, something that you can use to reference for practice, and it would work for any sport, softball, whatever. So that's like the free version of it. So it's basically coach's own drills and it making practice plans basically for them once they designate certain sections of it that they're just going to coach without drills. Where the pro version of it would come in is a little bit where, first of all, there'll be a drill library. Though if a coach doesn't have a drill for a certain something, they'd have a library that they could go to get a drill. And then where AI comes in, so let's say if you put in your team stats of a game, it'll analyze your team, it'll see what your weaknesses are, and then it will take from their own practice drills and from maybe the drill library and say, this is a practice plan maybe you should look at to work on with your team because here's what your weaknesses are. And it will build like over time, like last 3, last 5 games, and just start to give them an outlook of like where their weaknesses and where their strengths are for their team, and then build practice plans for that.
Yeah,
So
I really like it. It sounds like because I'm just thinking in my head, and okay, wait, I'm thinking basketball here. Okay, so okay, let's say I'm struggling. Let's say our team was struggling with transition drills. Okay, I need to put that in there. Oh, we got a team coming up that is killing it from the perimeter. How can I defend that better? Or I got my point guards are struggling to get it down the court because they can't handle pressure. What are some drills here? So it sounds like there's some really good stuff there. AI is getting a bad rap. Yes, I'm a teacher. I know the whole other side, either they're cheating, whatever. It's here to stay. It's not going anywhere. So I did the same thing you did. I took a class this last summer up through Idaho State on how to develop prompts, stuff like that, to make that
prompting, yeah.
yeah prompts and stuff, promptings and stuff like that, and found out how to use AI to make it to my advantage. Like, okay, kids are going to use this. Let's use it and let's figure out ways to use it. And there's a lot of good to that. So how can we
Yeah.
help coaches understand that AI is not the evil demon and how it can it's never going to replace human coaching, but why what how would you kind of brought up you could cut down on some times on planning. How do you convince these coaches that, hey, this is something that will help you out?
Okay. So one of the problems with creating a chat in any one of the AIs is that they have so much memory and then they fill up and then they get real slow and then you got to start another chat and then you lose half of the stuff they had in that chat as you move to another chat. So what part of this solution does is makes a database where the AI doesn't hold anything, it only analyzes. So, for instance, when you load your team stats for the practice planner, and this is what I would tell coaches, and this is what is the answer to your question. My next module that will come on to it we call the team analyzer, this player team analyzer, which when you put those same stats in that you put in your practice plan, it will analyze your team. And why I experimented with this with my team last year. And what I did was I put in all the stats, I put in all the girls. But what I had to do is I had to, after a game, put in specific things. Like I made like my coach's notes into the game. So in other words, like, okay, we won against, this team and the rebound and all that. And then, but it would be like this player struggled from the field. They were sick all week. We, we didn't box out well. We didn't do this well. The other team really put pressure on us in the third quarter and we fell apart because we're kind of a young team. So I gave it all the information like from the game. And then AI took that when it looked at the analysis and gave me back information from the stats and my team notes. So middle of the season comes and I asked the girls, I said, do you want to know what AI is saying about this team right now? Because I did a whole half a year report. They said yes. I read it to them and they all were like, yeah, that's pretty accurate about exactly who we are and what's happened. And it really gave me insights. It really gives me a lot of things. I would tell coaches is it would be like having an assistant that would just get data and stats for you. As long as you put your input into it and you put your stats into it, it will give you real data about your team that you might say to yourself like, wow, I didn't really look at it this way. And it would give you in a context that you could really like go, okay, these are some of the things I can look at now. These are some of the things at practice I need to start to do. And again, one thing AI can be sometimes is too positive about what's happening with you. You got to kind of tell it like, no, you got to give it to me straight. Don't give it to me all lollipop. Give it to me straight. So, but I find it to be an incredible tool, and I think I'm trying to put it in this app so that coaches understand it's a tool and how much they can information it can give them to help them save time, give it a better insights from their team, and just give them really trying to just save coaches some time to do the important things like motivate the team, have those communication, those talks and all the things, and maybe have some home life when you go home and you don't have to spend an hour and a half on practices in a week. Maybe you only have to spend a half hour. You know what I mean? That kind of thing.
So looking ahead at how AI and technology is going to impact sports, where do you see this in the next 5 years? So if we're looking a little bit long term, look into the future, where do you see this developing, or what is some advances that you think you might be seeing, and how it's going to help impact sports?
I think right now some of that's holding back is AI as far as like the video really can't. So how AI processes video right now is very what it does is it looks at a video. It can't like watch like a whole video. Like if you gave it a 20-second video, what it does is it chops it up in images and then looks at the images like the old school like film, and they makes them go like that way, and that's how it will assess things. So think about that's where AI video is right now. So down the road, for instance, early on in my prompting, I was making prompts for coaches. I was trying to sell prompts, and one of them was it was an analyzer, a video analyzer, and that's where I realized like AI can't do video very well because a guy reached out, a semi pro ball team reached out to me and they wanted a prompt for video, and what they wanted to do is they want the video to be so good that they could see the rotation of the ball when it comes out of the pitcher's hand. And so my AI couldn't, my prompt, the video technology is just not there yet. It is getting there, but I think you'll start to see I think like Huddle and those guys, they still have humans going to do games, like,
Right.
doing the stats
Doing the
for all the
stats and
players and
breaking the
that stuff.
film
I
down.
think,
Yep.
yeah, yeah, I think AI will eventually be doing that full time eventually. I don't think that's probably 5 years away, like when it's
Yeah.
able to recognize numbers at a fast pace, but right now it can't. You need humans to still do that. I think it's going to be AI is going to be what if you're afraid of AI, then you're not going to do much. It's going to be like people with the internet was in the very beginning. I was very privileged to be part of the internet when it first started, and there was a lot of talk on the same way about the internet as the AI is. Like everybody was like, it's bad, it's not good, and all these jobs. And you know what? Like the computer industry that I told you I work for, it did go under because of the internet, because people could buy all their products cheap online instead of. But then it also created other opportunities for me as well. So, I mean, AI is going to create. I don't think they're going to, there's going to jobs that are going to be lost, but I don't think there'll be other jobs that will be created from AI. You know what I
Yep.
mean? So it's just a different way that we're expanding as a human race almost, and it's going to be part of our everyday life. So, I mean, I think the expansion of it really it's going to probably analyze your games and give you synopsis of your full games when you go out. It'll probably do it automatically for you and give you like, this player did really well, like some of the things my team analyzer is kind of doing for you. But what I would say that like the big guys would miss a bit is like when you do that team analyzer on mine, it's also looking at your practice planner and looking at your drills and your practices and giving you ideas on like the next 3 practices you could have that would solve some of the problems that it's seeing for you. I mean, those are a little bit like I would tell you is my Huddle's coming from a huge mindset where my mindset is strictly for coaches. And that's what my mindset would be is like, what do coaches really need? And that's what I want from AI when I'm looking to do these types of things.
Perfect. I like it. I'm curious, and the whole AI and coaching, I just, and I try to stay in touch with everything's going on, and something you got going on, and I think that's really something that I think it's there's so much potential there, and I'm hoping the best for you and in getting this up
Thank
and
you.
going, man. I
Appreciate
think
that.
it's going to be something that's really beneficial because AI is used in teaching. We use it. We have prompts for teaching, and that kind of do the same thing. Okay, I need to develop a lesson plan today. Sometimes
Yeah,
as you're going along, you need things, and there are benefits to it. I mean, obviously, just like anything with AI, you always got to fact check some of the stuff because sometimes you got to be very specific about what you're asking because sometimes if your prompt
100%.
isn't perfect or you say something, you could take you off on somewhere else, and you're like, ugh. So yeah,
Yeah.
so
Oh,
that's
yeah.
yeah, I
Yeah,
think just
for
like
sure.
anything else, when you're using AI, make sure that you're always checking and making sure that you're not setting something up to be harmful or
100%.
damaging.
Yes.
So this next part here, I'm going to do some rapid fire questions for you and have a little fun with you
Sure.
here. So I'm just going to
All right.
rapid fire question. Give me a thought on it, and then we'll move on.
Okay.
All right. So first question.
Yep.
There you go. Best coaching advice you've ever received.
Best coaching advice I probably ever received would be don't don't, you know, don't let every loss weigh on you. It's not your it's not your fault all the time.
Okay. All right. That's a good one. All
So,
right.
yeah, yeah.
Next question. One book every coach should read.
I would say any book that Mike Krzyzewski has written, any book, any one of them, doesn't matter. I think he's a brilliant mind. He's got a great ideas. So look up Mike Krzyzewski and read one of his books.
Yeah. Most underrated leadership trait.
Most undership leadership trait is when a leader will do something for the team and not worry that they're not going to be her friend tomorrow.
Okay. Like it.
Does the right thing for the team, and you know what I
Yep.
mean?
Yep.
That's
Honesty is always the best thing. Yep. Most
yes.
overrated coaching cliche.
The most overrated cliche, I would say, probably, probably something about like if your if your kids are sweating on the floor or killing themselves in practice, then you're not going to be successful.
Yeah.
That kind
Okay.
of.
That's a good one. Favorite sports movie.
Oh, there's so many good ones. I think I probably my one that gets me every time, and there's a couple, but it has to be Rudy.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good one.
When the players come in and put the uniforms
Jersey.
down in
Yep.
front of the coach for Rudy to
Yep.
play, that's a tough moment every time.
All right. Last one, and then we'll move on to our next segment here. If you could spend a day with any coach in history, I think I know the answer to this. If you could spend a day with any coach in
Yeah,
history, who would it
yeah.
be?
Any coach in history,
Yeah,
though.
history. So this could go
Any
back. People
coach
who
with
are
in
around
history.
that might have passed
Yeah,
away, but
yeah.
whatever.
You know what I tell you? You know what I tell you? The guy that I would like to have been around, I would think it would be Red Auerbach.
Yeah, there you go. I like that. Yeah.
I think I would have liked to have been around with him and see because he was pretty successful
But yeah,
and he was kind of a pioneer of his day. So I think Red Auerbach.
I like it. Yeah. I was just thinking Coach K. I was thinking, this man's gonna go.
It would, but I mean, you would
Oh,
history,
I know. Yeah. Yeah.
history,
As soon as I said
anybody.
history,
Yeah,
that changed
yeah,
it. So yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Okay. All right. I'm going to do this other segment, and then we'll come back and we'll get your final thoughts here. So the segment I like to do, I always like to pick a mascot of the week. So I always go around and try to find unusual mascots from around the country and sometimes around the world. Like around here, we have a town called Orofino. It's the Maniacs. That's their mascot. Over in Oregon, there's the Ben Lava Bears. Over in down in Arizona, you got
Okay.
the Yuma Criminals. There's
My
the
word.
polka dots. There's a town called Polka, and their mascot the dots. So There's
Okay.
crazy mascots all over. And so this week I'm taking you to Albany, New York, and Doan Stewart. It's a private school, college prep school, and they have a very unique mascot, the Thunder Chickens. They are called the Thunder Chickens. So this is a
The
private school, K-12. Yep,
wow.
they are the Thunder Chickens. So
Thunder chickens.
yeah, so the
Okay.
history of the school is you had this two schools, these institutions, Kentwood Academy that was founded in 1852, and Agnes School founded in 1870, and then in 1975 the two schools merged. And you got Doan Stewart, excuse me, and it was named after the first Episcopal bishop of Albany, and then a noted educator at one of the schools. So the Thunder Chickens got its name. It's a symbol that is about creativity, school spirit, not taking yourself too seriously. The mascot represent is meant to represent a close knit community, unique tradition to the school. The Thunder Chickens is more than just a mascot; it's a symbol of their creativity, unity, and pride. Sports offered in this area for this school is soccer, cross country, basketball, tennis,
Okay.
and track and field. Small school. The residents of the area is about 9,000 kids. It's part of the Albany area. Economy of the area, the New York State government's there, healthcare, education. Cost of living is roughly 300 to 350,000, so somewhat affordable. Slightly above the national
Sure.
average. Far less expensive, obviously, than living in like New York City. Utility transportation costs are closer to the national average. Fun fact: the students at this place, it's kind of like a Hogwarts thing. So they get split up into two teams instead of houses. So you have a blue team and a green team, and then during their
Okay.
whole career, they are part of that blue and green team all the way up, and they do
Okay.
school competitions to kind of have
All
these
right.
competitions, whether it be costume contests, relay teams, tug of war, the trivia. So kind of some good information there about this school.
Yeah. That's I I'm just trying to think coming out of the huddle. Like it's let's go Thunder Chickens. You know what I
The Thunder
mean?
Chiefs.
Thunder Chickens
Yeah,
on three. You know what I mean?
yeah,
That's
yes,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So it's
So
an
it would be
interesting
very,
huddle.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was watching a couple of videos to kind of learn a bit about it. And one of the videos, one of the students like, hey, we play a team, and team's like, man, we don't lose the Thunder Chickens. But then they lose to the team. It's like, man, we lost to the Thunder Chickens. So, it's so the students sound like they have a lot of fun, a lot of pride behind it. Okay, coach, we're gonna close things
Yeah.
out here with you. Give you your final thoughts here.
Be that even if you don't know exactly how it's structured or how things are going to go, you're going to try to come in as organized and you know, as organized and trying to keep the practice going as best you can without having to do a ton of talking. And then, the one thing that and I would say to you, like for you to come reach out to me. You've seen my TikTok stuff. There's a piece that you either thought you believed in me or you liked what I was doing or something. Like you got to think about like kids look at you the same way. So when kids are looking at you, they're looking at someone and say like, do I trust what this person's doing? Do they really have my best interests at heart? Are they trying the best they can? And I think as a new youth coach, if you go in with that kind of mindset that you're going to be perfectly fine, and all the other aspect of it, like being the best, like being the best coach will come after with experience. But you got to get in it in order to to do it. So go in and just do the best you can and be as organized as you can and be as confident as you can, and your kids will, I'm sure, love you.
Okay. What is something you've learned about coaching people that has absolutely nothing to do with sports?
That people appreciate long after you're done coaching. A lot of times people will come back and realize like some of the things that you were doing that didn't necessarily translate from coaching were that they said thank you for And it's sometimes even like our practices were really hard and really, and it taught me, it teaches girls sometimes that hard work is what you need to do in order to be successful. So that's not really about basketball. It's just the fact that when you come and you do something and you do it, you work really hard at it, and then you do it, you can become successful. And so I think those are the things I realize, is that some of the things in basketball translate, and in other sports like volleyball, baseball, softball, the things that you're doing as a coach are translating into other aspects of life for people. And a lot of times they'll come later on in their lives and say, hey, I appreciated you for teaching me this because it's really helped me in the current career I'm in, and those types of things. And I mean, that's the payoff in coaching, right?
Right. So, one final question. When your players and fellow coaches think back on your impact years from now, what do you hope they remember the most about their experience?
I think, there was one senior one year that said something about me at a banquet that I thought to myself, that's really that's really what I want people to think about me. And her last statement of her speech was, the thing that we know about him is, and that's really all I care, that they know that I care about them, and I care that they have a good experience. And when they are in my program at Co Brown, that they really get some value out of it. So I think the most thing is the girls. I don't care if that I'm the greatest coach that ever lived or any of those things. All I really care about is that they know that I cared about them while they were in with us.
I love it. All right, man. Coach V, it was some amazing stuff. I appreciate your time and what you're doing to help coaches and become leaders and teachers. For everyone listening, please check out Coach V's social media channel. Also, check out AI Coaching Solutions. I will put the link in the description when I post this.
Great.
And remember, coaching is much more about winning and losses. It's about the relationships, leaderships, leaving people better than when you found them. Until I get to talk to you again, I want to thank Coach V again. Thanks for listening to Gray Goatees and a Whistle. See you next time.
Thanks, coach.
All right, man.
I appreciate that.
Dude, I appreciate you